All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is 12 o'clock on December 1st here at the Executive Committee. If we could please have the roll call.
Give me one moment. Contra Costa County,
Here. Don't send it to you.
Concord,
I am here.
Walnut Creek,
Here.
San Rafael.
Here.
Thank you. El Cerrito,
Here.
Pinole,
Here.
Mill Valley,
Here.
Larkspur,
Here.
Corte Madera, Fairfax,
Here.
Belvedere,
Here.
quorum established.
Thank you very much. Are there any announcements in Concord? All right, seeing none. Any announcements in San Rafael? Yeah, Director Andre.
Great, thank you. At the November 20th, 2025 board meeting, at 4 hours and 46 minutes into the meeting, the CEO and chief legal counsel were heard on a hot mic talking about removing certain directors from committees. This exchange, which happened during the roll call vote to send the Finance Committee to the Executive Committee for recommendations on details, is as follows. After Hercules is called, the CEO is whispering, "Guess who's getting off this committee?" After Pinole is called, the chief legal counsel is heard saying a director's name. It's a little bit garbled and soft. And then after Larkspur is called, the CEO is heard whispering, "We'll take care of them." This short exchange, captured on a hot mic, deserves the attention of every director. It raises serious questions about the ineffective governance practices of this agency, where MCE management acts as if it's in charge of the board. Management should be accountable and reports to the board, and the board is responsible for providing oversight on behalf of the public and our ratepayers. Any indication that management may be considering the removal of a duly elected and appointed board member should be addressed immediately by the board before further confidence is eroded in MCE. This incident is precisely why we need a governance review that is led and directed by the board and not by management. The fact that management thinks it can control the board and dictate which board members sit on committees indicates management's misuse of its authority. The public interest is not served by management leading a governance review. Unfortunately, this incident is part of a series of moves to silence individual directors who raise reasonable inquiries. Rather than engaging with the issues raised, management wants to remove directors who ask critical questions. I have raised questions regarding significant issues which matter to our ratepayers, including 1, the circumstances surrounding the $200 million increase in energy costs and consecutive quarterly operating losses. 2, whether 1 to 5 year contracts executed during periods of historically high pricing in August and October of 2024 were properly authorized. 3, whether entering into multi-year contracts at peak market pricing locks ratepayers into future years of high energy costs, especially while prices have reverted to historic norms. These issues are of material importance to our agency's financial health and to the ratepayers that we serve. They warrant clear and transparent responses. While the latest snippet captured on a hot mic is deeply troubling, I remain fully committed to executing my fiduciary responsibilities as a director. I was elected to represent my constituents and appointed to this board to act in the best interests of ratepayers. My focus continues to be the advancement of MCE's mission to deliver clean energy at affordable and competitive rates, while safeguarding this agency's long-term financial health. I will persist in seeking necessary information, asking rigorous questions, and working towards reforms so that ratepayers don't experience losses similar to those incurred in our most recent fiscal year. I hope my fellow directors will recognize that we all have a fiduciary duty to our constituents and ratepayers, and I hope we can work together towards common sense reforms to strengthen this agency. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Andre. And I know you raised a number of issues that are not on the agenda today, so we can't respond or get into those. We also don't have our CEO here today, but thank you for your comments. Any other announcements in San Rafael? All right, seeing none, we will move on to item number 3, public open time for items not on the agenda. Are there members of the public? Yes, Ken. You have 3 minutes. Can we have 3 minutes? We've never done
Yes.
2.
Okay. Hi, this is,
Not an XCOM. It's always been 3 in XCOM.
Ken Strong.
That's
for
okay,
Innovation
if it's
League.
possible.
Speaking on an item not on the agenda today, but it probably should have been and should certainly be on the XCOM agenda for the early January meeting. The news reports out that PG&E is going to significantly reduce its rates to starting at the beginning of the next year, possibly as much as 30%. And at the same time, it's going to increase the PCIA. Those two developments are likely to result in significant questions as to what MCE and frankly all CCA's operating revenues. While we certainly all applaud the fact that PG&E is lowering its rates, that's great news. How that's going to affect the fiscal outlook going forward for MCE next year, I think is a really important question. It's been addressed by Peninsula Clean Energy, Silicon Valley Clean Energy, AVA, and Sonoma Clean Power over the last couple of months, and they've all raised red flags about significant, possibly $100 million reductions in operating revenues looking forward. So I just want to urge the executive committee to, and staff may be totally on top of this, but I just want to make sure executive committee takes this up early in the new year so that we can understand how this is going to impact the budget going forward and make decisions on programs and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. I know our CEO is well aware of this. I talked to her about it about 3 days ago in anticipation of this meeting, and I won't be chair of this committee next year, but I'm sure it'll be a topic of discussion. Next comment. And since we don't have 2 minutes, I have a stopwatch, so you have 3.
Okay, great. Thank you. My name's Alicia Minion, and I'm from Solano County, but I'm also an MCE customer because my husband and I, we own a home in San Pablo. And first, I want to start with the reason why I came here to speak in public comment. Number one, I'm just requesting the board to request staff to put on the agenda to discuss the agreement that MCE has in connection with the lithium-ion battery storage project known as Corby Energy. And behind that, the developer is NextEra, which is a global publicly traded company, as you probably know. I did make a public records request for correspondence between MCE in connection with the Corby project. There's one correspondence, and I haven't read it all, but here's one. It's dated June 15th, 2022. It's between NextEra and an employee here at MCE. And it states that in connection with the Corby project, that it says, we have a couple of energy storage projects in, quote, advanced stages of development and are currently available to meet your needs. They mentioned Corby. In my opinion, that term means that it's basically shovel-ready, construction has started. But in June of 2022, it's far from that. In fact, NextEra doesn't even own the property on which the project is going to be placed, at least from what I could tell from public records. And so I'm asking the board to also agendize the procurement process and really to address the due diligence process when you're considering a controversial project, that before you spend any really amount of meaningful time, that be you contact that member jurisdiction and you vet that appropriately. And so then you could save a lot of hours. And then, so now that I heard that comment from Commissioner Andre, I'd like to comment on that. I happen to be an MCE customer. I'm deeply disturbed. Even if I wasn't a customer, I'm deeply disturbed with the notion of a government agency that their management would even contemplate throwing off a member of a JPA. As I had written in an email to you on the last meeting, provided you a white paper on, it was written by 2 law firms, and JPAs, when it comes to JPA, the members do have a fiduciary duty to the JPA. The board members are really, they just want MCE to succeed and to survive. And certain board members have identified material deficiencies and concerns that warrant further investigation. This should not be a reason to kick somebody off the board simply because you might disagree. And so I urge you to now agendize look at your bylaws and relook at what are your policies on throwing somebody off the board or censuring somebody. And I don't have that record, but you guys must. So I'm asking the board to agendize that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments in San Rafael from the public? Yeah, Dan?
Good afternoon. It's live. Dan Segedin, Marine Conservation League. I just wanted to say that we are also disturbed by the events that was reported by Director Andre. We also want to say that a lot of the questions being raised are questions we in the community are asking, and we do hope that they get addressed. And I want to follow up to my colleague Ken's comment that in terms of these rate decreases by PG&E, finance committees and other CCAs have already presented this in the last, going back 1-2 months. They've already presented this to their boards, identified alternative scenarios, and kind of said, get ready, because here's what we're looking at. Maybe we should take this action. Maybe we should take that action. Again, that's not here at MCE. We're late at the very least, so I hope this finance committee can get formed shortly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any public comment in Concord?
There are no members of the public here in Concord, Chair.
Are there members of the public on Zoom?
Yes, there's multiple. There's a member of the public, Mimi, and then Mark Joff, Jody Timms, and it looks like there's Marine Conservation League. No
All right.
name there.
Mimi, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
This is Mimi Willard from the Coalition of Sensible Taxpayers. I want to also express our deep concern about what has been reported today by Director Andre. It is grossly improper for management to attempt to silence board members who are exercising bona fide oversight activity on behalf of the community that they represent. This has all of the hallmarks of a rogue management that needs even more robust oversight than it is currently getting. Secondly, I want to point out that there is increasing interest in the community as to what's going on with this agency. And against that backdrop, I find 2 things that I think could be improved. The first one is agencies that don't have a tremendous excessive amount of public participation and that are interested in public input routinely provide 3 minutes for all comments at all meetings. And I think that that is a standard that MCE must embrace. I think the input from the community is valuable and should be listened to. Secondly, today I tried to call in on my phone. I used the phone portal And despite repeated attempts and double checking, I finally concluded that the message was accurate, that the code to call in today was, quote, not recognized, unquote. Clearly, that's unacceptable. And then thirdly, at the last meeting, there was a very erratic approach to remote public comment. One time, I was able to successfully get through and make a public comment, but there was at least one other agenda item where there was no call for public comment, and a raised hand didn't seem to do any good. So I challenge you to do better and make sure that you are accessible to every member of the community who wishes to participate remotely for whatever reasons, but that could include, as importantly, disability, which you are required by law to provide disabled access. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next comment, Mark. Mark, you can start your public comment. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, do you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Mark Jaffe, President, Contra Costa Taxpayers Association. Good afternoon, committee members, and thanks for the opportunity to comment. I've learned about the situation with your agency from our peer taxpayer advocacy group, CST. Mimi just spoke about her opinions, and I just wanted to add my own as a Contra Costa resident and taxpayer and homeowner advocate. Um, Looking at your 2025 financial statements, it seems that operational costs have increased considerably beyond the cost of electricity. So, for example, staff costs went from just under 21 million to almost 25 million, and other operating expenses went from 9 to 12 million. Looking at comparative figures, I note that MCE's chief executive officer earned $703,000 of cash compensation for the year 2024, according to the state controller's office. And that is well above the compensation from all peer agencies. So, for example, San Diego Community Power's CEO had total cash compensation of just $444,000 to manage an agency that actually has more ratepayers than you do. So I think that it's very promising that Finance Committee has been set up, and I hope that you will do a thorough review of all your expenses, including the contracts that are, I believe, up for approval today, where I saw consulting rates of as much as $285 per hour. I think all that needs to be reviewed, and the organization that just needs to really do a thorough job of sharpening the pencil and providing ratepayers the best value possible. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next comment, please. And apologies, Jessica, I don't recall who does. Jody Timms, you have 3 minutes. Please come off mute.
Good afternoon, Jody Timms. I'm a member of 350 Marin, and we wrote a letter this weekend, which I imagine hasn't gotten a chance to be distributed since it was just sent midday yesterday, and primarily addresses, well, first of all, our support as a Marin nonprofit that's been working to enhance and educate the public about the work of MCE for 15 years. We're very dedicated and very committed to its future and its proper functioning. The letter primarily deals with the organizational assessment, which I know is on the agenda, so I won't go into it except to say that the letter encourages that process to be very open and take its time. There's a number of concerns that I have. We are seeing here in Marin letters to the editor on a regular basis. There's a lot of concern about MCE right now that I think it's important, as has already been expressed. The dialogue, the conversation, the feedback, the relationship, the communication within the board, within the staff, and between those two really needs attention. I have a concern about the releasing of meetings. I see that happening all the time. I don't really know how that happens, if that is a joint board staff decision or a board decision, since those are board committees of a lot of the technical assistance, technical committee, et cetera. And then also the issue raised last time about the order of voting that's being taken and the redistribution of board members' names by weighted populations. I heard that raised at the last meeting. I just want to be sure that's getting agendized at some point, because it does seem to me that decision may have been made without consultation, and it is significant. So I just want to also thank the board at large and those of you there who were part of the decision to support the Standing Finance Committee. Again, I really look forward to a thorough organization assessment that can help MCE look at how it's structured, how it's communicating, how it's going to move forward in this really volatile and changing environment of energy transition that we're in. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Next comment, please. And clerk, if you can share the next names.
The Marin Conservation League, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Robert Miller from the Marine Conservation League. I'd like to follow up on the statements that have been made about the anticipated PG&E rate decreases and the PCIA increase and its impact on MCE revenues. I want to emphasize how important this development could be. AVA, in a recent packet, forecasts a deficit of 247 million from July 25 to December 26 over an 18-month period, and AVA is only about 10% larger than MCE. Sonoma Clean Power, which is about a quarter to a third the size of MCE, anticipates a deficit of about 117 million. Silicon Valley Clean Energy anticipates withdrawing from its reserves $60 million and forecasts a year-over-year revenue decrease of 112 million. PCE assumes a 16% decrease in revenues for its current fiscal year, and assumes, and this, I may add, was something that was raised in June of this year. Silicon Valley Clean Energy raised this issue in June of this year and again in September. It's quite remarkable that this issue, which could be so important to the revenues of MCE and to its financial condition, has not been raised before. The specific questions that we have is, what's the impact on MCE finances of expected PG&E generation rate reduction and PCIA increases? What are the estimates and what's the plan? Do the pro forma estimates of fiscal year 25-26 surpluses incorporate generation rate decreases starting in early 26? And why has MCE management not informed the board about the impending rate decreases and PCIA increases, whereas its peers have been raising it some for months? Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Bob. Are there any other members of the public on Zoom?
Mimi has her hand raised again, but I believe that was from the first time, so.
Yes, and
Yeah.
we only have one comment per person. So if there's no more raised hands, we'll move on to our next agenda item. Our next agenda item.
Chair, can I just mention something?
Yes, please go ahead, Director Kohler.
Couple of things is the rate decreases by PG&E as well as the PCIA increases has been brought to the board as, I'm not sure if it was at XCOM as well, a couple of times, and Dawn has mentioned that we'll be looking at rate decreases. But the other thing I wanted to mention is I read the Marin IJ, and PG&E had a rate increase request in there as a public comment to cover some of their wildfire liabilities. So there's also that piece, and I guess stay tuned.
Yes, and I realize this is not on the agenda today, but as mentioned, we'll be taking this up in the new year. Yeah.
And this is Director Darling. I just wanted to, we don't provide comments on this, but I just wanted to provide a brief update. MCE has been going around briefing legislators, and the issue of the PG&E rate cut and the PCIA increase has been brought to the attention of our local electeds because it's a part of a longstanding stats we've seen from PG&E, and we are looking, MCE has been looking at legislative fixes on the regular.
Thank you, Director Darling. Next up, we have a report from our CEO, and we have Jamie Tuckey, our Chief Customer Officer, here with us today to give the CEO report.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, committee members. First, I'd like to start off by giving an update about our EV Instant Rebate Program. This is a program where we offer rebates in the amount of $2,000 to $3,500 to our income qualified customers to help purchase an EV. It can be a purchase or a lease for a new or used EV. And we launched this as a point of sale rebate so that customers could go to a dealership in our service area and have that rebate automatically applied to their purchase price in May of 2023. Since that time, we have helped over 2,000 customers, about 2,300, to get an EV by providing $6.8 million in rebates. And the update for you all today is to let you know that we have fully allocated the funding from this current fiscal year's budget for that program. So it's officially closed for the remainder of the fiscal year. We have notified our customers and our participating dealerships as well, and we'll be discussing potentially renewing this program by adding additional funds through our budget planning process that will begin in the new year in 2026. Next, I wanted to give an update about some of our customer participation as we head towards the end of the year. First is that we have an all-time high for customer participation. We are currently serving over 601,000 of our customers, representing 87.2% of accounts in our service area. And our call center achieved a record high this year for retention rates for folks who are calling in of 34%, and that is 3% higher than last year. So just a big thank you and congratulations to the call center team. They take all kinds of, this is our in-house call center team, and they take all kinds of calls and emails every day. So we really appreciate the work that we're doing. Lastly, I wanted to give an update on the state-funded arrearage management program. This is a program that helps customers reduce or eliminate energy debt on their energy bills, and that has also reached an all-time high. This is because of the outreach, the marketing, and the customer support efforts that we're providing to our customers. We've got 70% of our customers who are eligible are now enrolled, and that represents 8,200 customers, and they have had $4.5 million in energy debt eliminated thanks to this program. So happy to report on these achievements. It's been a strong year for growth and impact, and looking forward to continuing the momentum with you all next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie, and welcome back as well.
Thank you.
It's great to see you. I have a couple of questions, but I'll start in Concord and see if anyone has questions or comments based on the report from Jamie. All right, seeing none. Any in San Rafael? Yeah, Director Andre.
Great. Thank you, Jamie, for your report. I'm very interested in this program's topic, and I feel that it would be helpful for the executive committee if we could get a more detailed presentation of basically all of the programs so we can see them all at once and see how much money, is under every program, how much has been dispersed, how successful have these programs been in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, because that's really the goal. I would be interested in having a more detailed conversation about this rather than just during the CEO report. I think it would be helpful, as an executive committee to understand, how much money is going back into our communities, and where. I know some of these programs are you have to be income qualified. And so I would just like a better understanding of that. I think it'd be helpful as a board member to understand that.
Okay, thank you for that
Thank you.
request. I will note we had such a long board meeting last month that we didn't get to it, but it was actually the last item on the agenda was our customer programs update. So there is a pretty detailed packet in there with each of our programs, all of our open programs, including this one, with dollars spent, customer participation, those types of figures. And we are planning on bringing that up back again in the new year, and going forward it'll be a quarterly report provided to the board, but we're also happy to bring it up with the committee as well. Thank you for the feedback.
Fantastic. Director Kohler?
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. And I know we get these customer programs updates usually quarterly, right? But I think Director Andre was looking for something even more detailed. But Jody Timms has mentioned to me something that she's seen at other CCAs that I think might be something we consider, and that is installing a lot of Class 1 EV chargers, which are not as fast, obviously, and not as great, but that it may be a way to do things more cheaply and get a broader reach. So just something to think about for customer programs in the future.
Thank you.
Director Wilkinson?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to that request as well, Jamie, because I think this analysis of programs in a very comprehensive way would be useful. And I think the impacts in terms of if you're able to calculate the savings in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, because if the program doesn't do that, then there's not really much point to the program. And then also some analysis of how much is grant funded and how much is being funded by customer funds, essentially, would be really helpful as well.
We can do that.
Thanks.
Thank you. And I just have two questions, comments. One on the EV rebate. I realize this is something we do with the annual budget, and this is connected to a grant. But given that it's not connected,
MCE funded.
it's MCE. So is this funded through the Deep Green?
Partially through the Deep Green premium and partially through the operations budget.
I would be interested in, and I realize we don't have this on the agenda today, but for us to think about replenishing some of those funds, given that the federal government subsidies went away at the end of September. I think, waiting till the budget and the new year, right? We may want to do some bridge if there's other funding and other programs or other parts of the budget that can be moved. That's not on the agenda today. Maybe by the time it could get on an agenda and get passed, it'd be the new fiscal year, but just something to think about. And for our chair who's here with us today, Director Scales, present, to think about putting it on a future agenda for discussion, because I think this is so important now more than ever because the federal subsidies have gone away. So just something to consider. The other question I had was on the customer retention piece. Do you have any numbers on Deep Green since we passed the increase in the premium? I'm just wondering if we've seen those numbers go up with customers rising, or if we've seen a drop off because of the increase.
Yeah, I believe Zay Perrin, our VP of Customer Operations, is on the line and can provide more information about the Deep Green participation. And if he's not on the line, I'm happy to follow up.
Yeah.
We
Follow up,
provided before the board retreat an email to every board member should have gotten this, but it had an email about customer participation within your community through all of our programs, but also Deep Green. So we have that to your program as well. And I see, or to your community, but I see Zay.
Just curious, and hey Zay, just curious in terms of since we passed the premium increase to Deep Green, have we seen retention go down, or are people calling in to cancel or not?
We've actually seen the Deep Green retention increase. So we haven't had more Deep Green customers opt out or opt down. We've actually had more customers opt up than we had opt down or opt out.
That's great news. Thank you. All right. If folks are okay, we'll move on to our next agenda item.
Chair?
Public comment on this. Yes. Go ahead.
Vicken Kasarjian, I just have some facts to share with the committee, if you don't mind.
Please go ahead, Vicken.
Yeah, so I thought it would be beneficial. It's not on the agenda, but we had heard a lot of comments about the Corby project, and I just wanted to share some facts. So after completing our open season procurement process to meet MCE's integrated resource plan, resource adequacy and midterm reliability obligations as outlined by the PUC, staff brought to the board on October 19th, 2023, the contract for approval. The board approved it unanimously. Solana County Board Member Vasquez was not present at that meeting, and there were no public comments. On June 23, 2024, Solana County implemented a 45-day moratorium that on February 27 increased it to 22 months for grid-level battery additions. Just as an FYI, the governor of California had passed in 2022 AB 205 to provide expedited permitting process for the greening and cleaning of California's grid system for large projects through the California Energy Commission. So based on the contractual obligations between MCE and the third party, there are tens of millions of dollars on liability on both sides in this contractual coexistence. I just wanted to say that given our obligation under the MCE JPA and the contractual obligation, staff has not and cannot be involved even in acts of good faith to be perceived as influencing a particular outcome. So we can definitely make this in a future probably closed agenda item for discussion, given the sensitivities. I just wanted to share these facts. I know it's not open for discussion, but just sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicken,
Chair.
and we can include this in the CEO report. Yes, Director Scales Preston.
Yes, thank you. So after our meeting last month, because we received so many public comments, I also reached out to Dawn, asking her about the Solano County project and if it was something that could be agendized so that we can discuss. So if that needs to be in the closed session for next month, that would be great. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Chair. All right, we'll go to public comment. We'll start in San Rafael. Go ahead, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, Alicia Minion. I appreciate the staff's comments regarding the Corby project. And number one, there's very few exceptions or where you can discuss something in public comment. The intention of a government is to conduct the people's business in public. And I'm not sure this contract, the discussion of this contract and its validity meets one of those exclusions. And so I'd appreciate it if the board can, confer with their legal counsel to make sure. And then I'm certainly will ask Solano County Council about this as well, and whether or not you're allowed to discuss this only in closed session. Number two, I think that while I hear the staff's concern about to influence the outcome of the CEC's consideration of issuing a permit, what we're asking, and I'm not asking you to interfere with that, I'm asking you to assess the validity of the agreement in light of your JPA agreement provision 2.7, which explicitly states that a project within that's caused by MCE within a member's jurisdiction, that it comply with that local jurisdiction's general plan. This does not comply with our general plan. And while I hear the staff's comment that the state has intervened and passed legislation such as SB 254 and AB 205, you should consider the fact that Solano County has voter-approved measures that bake into our general plan that ag land must be preserved as ag land. And I'm oversimplifying it, but that's basically what it does. And it's known as our Measure T, which passed in 2010. And if you read the language, the full text of SB 254 and AB 205, it does not address pre-existing voter-approved measures that protect ag land. So I don't think any of this has been contemplated by anyone. And so I still ask that it just be agendized and it be, to me, it should not be closed session, but I'll have to, think about it more and discuss it with Solano County Council. And then I will be sending you the JPA agreement, and I've highlighted provision 2.7 for you, so it'll be really easy to jump to that, and you can look at that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other public comments in San Rafael on the CEO report? Seeing none. Any members of the public in Concord or online who
No
wish to
members of
speak?
the public in Concord, Chair.
I see none online, Chair.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to number 5, consent calendar.
Chair, can I respond for just one moment?
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to clear up that staff are permitted to respond to public comment, which is what I believe just happened.
Yep.
And then that, of course, if this item is agendized, we would ensure that it complies with all of the components of the Brown Act, whether that be permitted under closed session or not. But we would make sure that we looked into that so that the public can be made aware of what would be discussed and when and in what venue.
Thank you, Catalina. Just a clarifying question for you or for the board chair. Would this be a closed session of the full board, or would this be agendized at the full board or TechCom or this committee?
That would be up to the committees or the board. If they'd like to have it, we could have it at any of the venues. And again, I'd like to just reserve my decision on whether that could actually be at closed session. I would like to confer with the statute.
Yep.
I'm not aware off the top of my head if that would be permitted.
Okay. Chair, feel free to weigh in on whether your intention was to bring this to the full board or a committee, just for the public to know where to turn to.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was thinking of the full board when I mentioned it to Don right after our meeting because it came to us to the full
Yep.
board. So I think that's where we would bring it back to, whether it's public or closed session. Thank you.
I would concur with that. Thanks for clarifying. I see Zay Perrin's hand is raised. Go ahead.
Thank you, Joe. I just wanted to make a confirming statement in regards to deep green and deep green retention. So when we talk about the retention, we're talking about deep green customers calling in and either opting out or opting down. So we've increased in our deep green participation in that rate, in that we've either retained them or less than have opted down than have opted in. But I do want to clarify, if a closed account closes and they're a deep green customer, the new customer that comes in isn't necessarily a deep green customer. So our total population in deep green has gone down by 1,000 customers. However, our retention has increased. So hopefully that makes sense.
That does, and thank you for the clarification.
So,
all right, moving on to our consent calendar. Do any directors in Concord wish to pull an item off of consent? See none. How about in San Rafael?
I'd like to remove C5.
All right, Director Wilkinson would like to move C5. Any other items? All right. All right, so for C5, why don't we take a motion to approve the other items on consent first?
I'll move the rest of the consent calendar other than C5.
I'll second.
All right, Director Kohler made the motion, and Director Lawrence Galati seconded. Can we have the roll call, please? And this is for items C1 through C4.
Contra Costa County,
Yes.
Concord,
Yes.
Walnut Creek,
Yes.
San Rafael.
Yes.
Thank you. El Cerrito,
Yes.
Ano,
Yes.
Mill Valley,
Yes.
Larkspur,
Yes.
Fairfax,
Yes.
Belvedere.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Clerk. All right, C5, Director Wilkinson.
So this just relates to the January board agenda, and I would like to see if we can add to the agenda a discussion of the voting system and methodology. There's clearly a lot of questions that have been raised about that by board members and by members of the public, and I'd like to see that come back as a discussion item, specifically in relation to what qualifies as an admin decision and what is a CCA program issue. And I think that's important to have a board level discussion around that. I think comments have already been made about the Corby project, and I would certainly encourage for that to be added to the agenda. And if this does have to be a closed session item because of pending litigation, which I assume is the argument that's going to be brought, I would encourage staff to make sure that we have the requisite attorneys in that room in addition to our general counsel.
Thank you for the suggestion. Chair Scales Preston, are you open to adding these items?
Yes, that sounds good.
All right. Any other directors have any comments or suggestions for this item? Yeah, Director Andre.
Well, one suggestion, depending on how discussions go today, if we want to put the recommendation from XCOM of the Standing Finance Committee for discussion at the next board meeting in January, whether that should be agendized.
Thank you for that. And a couple of directors had asked me about that, actually. And at the board meeting, I had indicated that we would bring it, and actually the board voted on a motion, we would bring it once we felt we were ready. So if we feel we are ready after today, we can recommend to the chair of the board and our CEO to put it on the agenda in January. If we feel we need more time to bring back for another discussion, then we can bring it back. Yeah, but I think it'd be premature to put it on at this point because we haven't had that discussion. Yeah. All right. Any public comment? And I apologize, I didn't take public comment on the previous items on consent. Are there any public comments on the consent calendar in San Rafael? See none. Any online?
I see no raised hands, Chair.
All right. Can we have a motion to approve CU5?
So move, Wilkinson.
Director Wilkinson made the motion. Any seconds?
I'll second Chair Scales Preston.
Thank you, Chair Scales Preston. Can we have the roll call,
Don't we
please?
need a friendly amendment to accept the changes?
Yes,
suggested,
that's
please?
correct. Yeah. What the?
Sure, make the motion with the proposed changes.
Okay. All right. Can we have the roll call, please?
Contra Costa County,
Yes.
Concord,
Yes.
Walnut Creek,
Yes.
San Rafael,
Yes.
El Cerrito,
Yes.
Pinal,
Yes.
Mill Valley,
Yes.
Larkspur,
Yes.
Fairfax,
Yes.
Belvedere,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you, Clerk. All right. Number 6, the Charles F. McLaughlin Advocacy Award nomination discussion and action. Is this Sebastian? Excellent. Go ahead. The floor is yours. We can see the PowerPoint.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chiara Donato. I'm a community development manager on our public affairs teams, and I've been with MCE for the last 3 years. So today I will be presenting the nominees for the Charles F. McLaughlin Advocacy Award. Next slide. So just a little bit of background about this award. This award celebrates the legacy of Charles F. McLaughlin, who is MCE's founding chair and Marin County supervisor. He was a lifelong advocate for community action, environmentalism, and he played a pivotal role in launching MCE and CCAs. This award was established in 2011 by MCE. The award recognizes individuals and organizations who have demonstrated passion, dedication, and leadership on behalf of MCE. So each year, staff nominates community partners that have gone above and beyond in their partnership efforts with MCE. We also extended nominations to staff on public affairs that worked with community stakeholders directly, and then to all staff at MCE.
Then our clerk reached out to the board on November 5th to allow them for nominations as well. Next slide. This year we received 9 nominations, which is a first for us. Last year we received 4. We have a nominee from each county represented, so all of our counties are represented here. We have 2 from Marin County, 3 from Contra Costa County, 2 from Solano, 1 from Napa County, and 1 organization that encompasses all service area. The first one is the Utility Reform Network, or TURN. Then we have Maria Albuja Pavon from North Marin Community Services, Ryan Melendez from County of Napa, Eric Hagstorm from County of Solano, Richard Fleming from Benicia Community and Sustainability Commission. Next slide, please. Next, we have Habitat for Humanity from East Bay in Contra Costa County, Carrie Rivers from the City of Martinez, also Contra Costa County, Kapil Ammon from City of Pinole from Contra Costa County, and Mark Chabria from County of Marin. And our ask today is staff is recommending that we nominate 4 individuals or organization for the full board's approval at a future 2026 meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. We'll start in Concord. Are there any questions on the award or the award process? All right, seeing none, we'll come to San Rafael, and we'll keep it to comments, and then we'll do public comment.
Oh, so just questions?
Yeah, just questions, if there's any. All right. Are there members of the public in San Rafael who wish to provide public comment? Anyone online?
See no raised hands, Chair.
All right, we'll deliberate. We'll start in San Rafael. Director Kohler.
Yeah, well, I want to say, as usual, we have too many people that we have a wealth of good people who have really done incredible work. And reading through the packet and looking at the presentation, I think I would recommend 3, and that is the Utility Reform Network, who I've worked on other aspects. I think they've really helped MCE with their EV program. I would also suggest Habitat for Humanity, East Bay, Silicon Valley. They've done amazing things throughout. And specifically for Walnut Creek, I think that's a real win, but they've done so much for our communities. I think they are just a really good one. And the other one is kind of an unsung hero. I can't pronounce his name. Mark Chabrabia from the County of Marin. He single-handedly deals with quite a bit at the county with electrification reach codes, rebate management, and he's just a very quiet guy who just keeps plugging away. And I think also what that does for me is sort of spread it around, so we're not all in one county and so those are my suggestions. And there were so many to choose from. It was hard. And I'm sure others will have good ideas for folks that they would like to recommend. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Other directors in San Rafael, Director Lawrence Gulati.
Yes, thank you. I think because we are, I guess, nominating 4.
You can do up to 4.
Up to 4, yes. I would like to put a plug for Maria Albuja Pavon. I think it's very important that we work with our Latinos in our communities. I think it's a gap in everything that is related to clean energy. So I would love to nominate Maria and the work that she's doing, and really congratulate to all the nominees as well, because it's excellent to have to decide which ones get the award. So thank you.
Fantastic. Any other comments in San Rafael? Seeing none, we'll turn it over to Concord.
Chair, I think I'll start. This is Director Murphy.
Go ahead, Director Murphy.
Hi, good afternoon. So just wanted to know for folks who I think it was mentioned that staff has recommended that we take four. I think in the past we've done up to three, and then we also are able to honor all these individuals. Just FYI, I just wanted to make that note, although I think it would be valuable. I did want to speak of three nominees that I think have done just really a tremendous job. The first, I think I agree with Director Kohler. The Utility Reform Network has done such a tremendous job at consumer advocacy, especially around CPUC hearings. I think it's really important that like the work that they've done in education, advocacy, but also organizing speaks to what our agency needs, I certainly think, but also speaks to what our consumers, our ratepayers have been asking for. And so I would love to use this year to really honor I guess the organization, but Kevin, Constance, and Adria, I think they've done a super tremendous job of being out there in the community. I'm pretty sure they do work in every one of our counties as well, which is really exciting. And to see them as a nominee, I'm really glad to see them here. So I just wanted to elevate them. The second I wanted to elevate was also Richard Fleming. Richard, I don't know Richard well, but I've heard about his work all throughout several of our counties, particularly his work in Benicia, organizing small business owners around our mission and vision, I think is really stellar. I would love to I would love to see someone like that honored. I would also like to mention that I believe Mr. Fleming was also nominated last year for this award as well. And so just wanted to note that again, we have a bag of riches here, which is great. But I just, again, I think, as a community volunteer, he has really stepped up to embody the values of MCE and embody the work that is needed for us to push towards this next chapter of our agency. And I'd love to see him honored. And then last but not least, surprise, surprise, I have to, of course, celebrate an unsung hero, Kapil Amin. For those who don't know, I was elected in Pinole in 2020. And when I was elected, I went through our general plan, which is what you do as a nerd policymaker who's 26 years old, and realized that there was that the council at the time started an element called sustainability. But there was actually this was again 20 years ago. There was actually nothing under the sustainability element. And what was really exciting about that, but also very frustrating for a new council member like myself, was that there was no real mechanism or work or blueprint for our work to be enabled. And so before we had a sustainability project manager named Kapil Amin, we had really a piece of our general plan with no plan. But Kapil has done so much tremendous work over just the last 5 years. Once we brought him in, by the way, he was a Civic Spark Fellow that ended up turning into a sustainability project manager. And I think, again, it goes to show that now Pinole has now adopted a strategic sustainability climate action and adaptation plan. We have now moved into a deep green and moved many customers into deep green. We've done a tremendous amount of community service work and community engagement work around sustainability. And these are things we were just not doing. I know I feel very favoritism. I know I'm a little biased in this, but I really would love to see Kapil honored, particularly because the group called Sustainable Contra Costa also honored him as also nominated him. And those who know, I was also nominated that year. So we had a riches of Pinole nominees, but it would be just so great to see him nominated for this award today, given his experience, given that he is a young, enthusiastic, but also incredibly seasoned at this point sustainability manager. And I think he really resonates again with our values as MCEs, but he's also worked with a lot of our cities and counties across the Bay Area in terms of leadership, climate leadership, training programs, helping folks really create the ecosystem that's necessary to win. And so I just wanted to elevate those. I think Mr. Fleming, and of course, Mr. Amin would be my votes for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Murphy, and thanks for providing context also on Pinole's work. Other directors in Contra Costa?
Yes, this is Director Nakamura from Concord. The ones that jumped off for me was, of course, the North Marin Community Services. Anytime you can involve the Latino community and get them engaged, and if you've got people who are leaders in the community and going through the promontoras, I think that that is just a huge win to be able to engage a community that sometimes maybe the language it might even be a barrier. But so that one jumped off at me. Richard Fleming, we did talk about him last year. I'd like to elevate his nomination for an award this year as well. And the other one that I would like to see get some attention is the Utility Reform Network, the TURN program. I think that's also another way that, as MCE tries to, one of the values that I appreciate with MCE is the giving back to the community and working in the diverse communities of the Bay Area. So those are all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Director Scales Preston.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would like to also echo in support of the Utility Reform Network, as well as the North Marin Community Services. And I would like to add the city of Martinez, Cary Rivers. I think one thing, to highlight, which has been highlighted about some of the other individuals, it's always nice when you have community members that are taking a mantle and really getting their community involved in clean energy and being a champion of MCE and really getting community to understand the benefits of it. And I know Cary, and I see him out in the community a lot. So that would be my 3. And if we decide to go with a 4th one, I would go with the city of Knoll, Capal as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's Director Darling.
Go ahead.
The ones I'd be interested in turn, I think we all agree on. I like the idea of North Marin because working with our Latino community is so important. Fleming, I agree with. Habitat for Humanity is one that I would really recommend because we need to push the narrative that we're doing this not just because it makes sense, but the reason that Habitat made this their first net zero project ever was they wanted to ensure that these units were long-term affordable to the new homeowners. And so they included all the features that we've been talking about, batteries and electric appliances and stuff like that, specifically to address the affordability issue so that their new homeowners can maintain their place in the world. And it's a great addition to our city. So those are my 4.
Thank you, Director. Director Quinto, do you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm going to choose Habitat for Humanity, the city of Pinole, the city of Martinez, but also the North Marin County group. Thank you.
All right. Director Wilkinson and Director Andre, I didn't hear from you. Do either of you have any additions to add or? No, not today. All right, so I was making some notes here. It seems like North Marin Community Services and TURN had the most folks indicate interest, and then Richard Fleming. And then after that, I had Pinole and Habitat, both with 3. So that leads us to 5 people. I don't know if we want to stick with 3, if we want to find a way through on 4, or if we want to go 5. Open it to discussion.
Why don't I make a motion for at least 2 and then we can figure out the rest?
Okay.
And that would be TURN and North Marin Community Services for at least, I think there was, as you said, the most votes for that. So we could get those out of the way and then figure out the others.
Can we add in Richard Fleming? I had 4 for
I would add in Habitat for Humanity, which I think had more.
They had 3.
Okay, well.
Okay.
And I'll second that.
Okay, so the motion is for North Marin Community Services in turn. There's been a motion and a second.
Wait, could I confirm, was a third added, or are we
Well-
just doing the two?
Right now, let's do the two.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, can we have a roll call, please?
Contra Costa County,
Yes.
Concord,
Yes.
Walnut Creek,
Yes.
San Rafael,
Yes.
El Cerrito,
Yes.
Pinole,
Yes.
Mill Valley,
Yes.
Larkspur,
Yes.
Fairfax,
Yes.
Belvedere.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you.
I guess this is Barbara Kohler, I would just, I know this is probably painful, so I would just suggest that we really consider Habitat for Humanity. They have a very broad reach in what they do for our communities overall. And, you know, I know Maureen Sidonian, who's their executive director. She has really stretched Habitat for Humanity from years ago where they were really struggling. And I think them going net zero is just a really important message for homeownership, for people of low income. So I really think we need to look at them, and I would make a motion to support Habitat for Humanity. And I know this is painful, but maybe we go with that and then figure out the fourth one.
I was leaving it up to the group, but I think I would also say Habitat for Humanity. I think what Director Darling talked about on kind of the net zero and how that could be kind of a trailblazer for similar projects, I think is really impactful. I would also say since Richard Fleming was nominated last year, and if I'm not mistaken, he's a volunteer. If I'm not mistaken, whereas I think all the other folks here are doing it in the context of their work. Obviously, they're going above and beyond in their work, but I think that also is a key piece here.
So I would accept that as a friendly amendment to my motion to have Richard Fleming as well as Habitat for Humanity.
Yep.
So if you want a second.
Yeah, I will second that. And one thing I think for, in the future, we might consider an additional award category or something for the folks who are the sustainability coordinators or managers at cities and counties. I happen to have worked with Mark. I think he's fantastic. Everything Director Kohler said is absolutely true, right? It sounded like the sustainability managers in Pinole and Martinez are doing amazing work, but it's a little bit different than nonprofits and volunteers. So just thinking about how we think about that in the future might be a next step.
So we have a motion and a second.
Yes,
Yes.
Chair, this is Director Murphy. I just wanted to agree with that. I was thinking the same thing in my head about how a lot of our cities and counties some of us had sustainability managers and project managers. Some of us are getting those new roles, but I'm glad to hear the upliftment of Mr. Fleming. I think, he speaks to, he obviously was nominated last year, so this is our reconsideration of him. And I think it does speak a lot to an individual's capacity who's not getting paid, frankly, to do this work. I think it speaks highly. So I would say, just as a note, and again, happy with all of these. I think all of these nominees, I think everybody we're all happy with them. But I do find that every year, this is my 5th year of doing this, that it's always challenging to and when it comes to the votes, to support an individual versus the organization. And so I do notice that a lot of the time we do want to uplift the organizations because, again, they have the capacity to do the work. So I think that may be wise to consider a different type of nomination or honorable mention for some of our, again, sustainability staff and those type of roles as opposed to the organizations. But happy to support the motion and thank you all for getting us through this conversation.
Great, thank you. Any other deliberative comments? All right, hearing none, we'll take a roll call.
Chair, I would advise before we take the roll call, we allow for public comment. I don't think we've had that yet on this item before we close out with the final vote.
We did have public comment overall, not on this motion.
On this item, though.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Then I missed.
There were no public comments.
Okay.
Yeah. But thank you. All right. Roll call, please.
Contra Costa County,
Yes.
Concord,
Yes.
sorry about that. Walnut Creek,
Yes.
San Rafael,
Yes.
El Cerrito,
Yes.
Pinole,
Yes.
Mill Valley,
Yes.
Larkspur,
Yes.
Fairfax,
Yes.
Belvedere.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you, everyone, and congratulations to those who were moving forward. All right. Next item, revisiting alternating locations. Do we have a staff presentation on this or comments? Yeah, Justine, go ahead.
Just say a few quick comments. So last year at our November 21st special meeting of the Executive Committee, the committee met and discussed several strategies to streamline, strengthen communication amongst the team. At the December 4th regular Executive Committee meeting, the committee voted on a number of strategies to bring back for discussion and action, one of which was alternating primary meeting locations between San Rafael and Concord. In practice, we haven't found this to increase in-person attendance at the primary location. I think folks favor going places closer to their work and where they're doing their city work. So, and a few committee members have requested that we remove this requirement. So that is our recommendation, to remove the primary location requirement for executive committee meetings.
Great, thank you. We'll start in Concord. Let's keep it to questions, and then we'll do public comment and then deliberation. Any questions on the current policy or what's proposed today?
This is Director Darling, and my question is, when we talked about this and adopted this, there was two parts to it. There was the 2 in-person meetings and then alternating primary locations. Are we talking about just alternating primary locations, giving that up, or are we abandoning the in-person meeting concept?
At this time, staff's recommendation is solely connected to the primary locations. We are not recommending any changes to the 2 in-person meetings per year.
Thank you.
Any other questions in Concord? All right, see none in San Rafael. Director Wilkinson?
Yeah, I just had a quick question, which is, what are the legal constraints on having Solano and Napa have their offices for, I know you do that for the board meetings, but for committee meetings, what's the constraint there?
Yeah, and Catalina, feel free to correct me if I'm incorrect on this, but we would just work with their staff to ensure that the meeting location is staffed and open and available to the public. And they would be required to post the agenda 72 hours in advance and have the packet available for inspection in case members of the public were to come, as long as they can ensure that they can maintain that meeting location and keep it open for the duration of the meeting. We could have those locations be available should we have committee members who'd wish to attend from a Solano or a Napa location.
Because it feels like a constraint on those members potentially joining any of the committees.
Yeah. So I think if any of those members would like to join, if they have a meeting location in Napa and Solano, we would just follow the same procedures that we do for the board meeting. Happy to do it.
Thank you.
Can I just clarify? According to the staff report, you had asked for their addresses as well as that other information 10 days in advance, not 72 hours in advance.
So the agenda would have to be posted 72 hours in advance.
Okay.
We need it. We need
Right,
it
you
in
need
time
to
to
know.
build the packet, which is why we request 10 days.
Okay.
The packet typically goes out 7 days in advance, and so that gives us time to make sure it's included.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, we'll go to public comment on this item, starting in San Rafael. Seeing none, any comments online?
No comments online, Chair.
All right, we'll bring it back, starting in San Rafael. Deliberative comments, feel free to make a motion. Director Kohler.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't on exec. I stepped off for about a year when this decision was made. And I think as an agency that's looking at emissions reductions, to have people drive to Concord or San Rafael is really against our mission. And I also think, it's a huge expenditure of time. And, for a meeting that starts at noon and goes to whenever, there can be a lot of traffic. And for people who are working, even for those of us who aren't working full time, it's just a huge expenditure of time. And I get the reason of people working together, and that's helpful, but I would make a motion that we go with dispensing with this requirement of alternating locations.
I'm happy to second that, Wilkinson.
All right, we have a motion from Director Kohler and a second from Wilkinson. Other comments in San Rafael?
Yes, I think I was there last year in the executive committee. I think the idea was to get, because it's such a big board, just to try to have more interactions in person. I have been able to make it to any of the meetings in Concord, unfortunately, because in reality, we have council meetings on Mondays and it's just too busy. So I will also support the motions.
Great. Director Andre, comments? No. Turning it to Concord, any comments? All right. Seeing none, I'm also happy to support this motion. Can we have the roll call, please?
Contra Costa County,
Yes.
Concord,
Yes.
sorry, it looks like my mouse is freezing up here. Walnut Creek, Walnut Creek,
So yes.
thank you. San Rafael,
Yes.
El Cerrito,
Yes.
Pinole,
Yes.
Mill Valley,
Yes.
Larkspur,
Yes.
Fairfax,
Yes.
Belvedere.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you, everyone. All right. Moving on to item number 8, discussing the scope of the Finance Committee that will be created. Just want to remind everyone this is a recommendation to the board. We can finish our work here and arrive at a recommendation today that could go on the next board meeting agenda. Should the chair wish to put it on that agenda, we could also decide in the interest of time, or if we need further information from staff, we could bring this back at a January meeting of the XCOM. We could have a special meeting just to talk about it if we feel we need additional time. We want to make sure we get this right. But I personally think we can probably arrive at some decisions today, but just want to put that out there that we can bring this back if folks wish to do so. We have in front of us a draft overview. This was put together by staff. Director Kohler and I had some emails with staff kind of in the lead up to today, and this was, we wanted to hear the staff perspective on what would work best in terms of staff capacity and allotment of time and the flow of how this items might flow between Finance and Executive Committee. Unfortunately, with the holiday and the limited amount of time between the board meeting and today, it wasn't in the packet, which is why you've been passed out this piece of paper today. But this will be in the public record following the meeting. This is a jumping off point. This is in no way we have to adhere to this. This is just staff's thoughts in terms of the best way forward. So I've identified some kind of areas for us to focus our attention. I think the first one is the most important, which is the scope of the Finance Committee. So I'd like us to first address that item before going on to the other items, if the committee is open to that. The second item I have here are any requirements to be on the committee, qualifications. So there's a question that was posited by a couple of board members in the board meeting of do you have to have, is there criteria to be on the committee? Do you have to have some sort of financial background or not, right? And I know there's differing perspectives on that, so arriving at a decision on that point, I think, is important. You also have a suggestion here in the scope from staff on being on the board for 6 months prior. I believe that's a requirement of this committee as well. So do we want to make that a requirement of the Finance Committee? Are there any other qualifications for being on the committee? The third item is how large of a committee there is, and appreciate our general counsel for confirming we can limit the size. So I know I would like us to limit the size, but would like to hear from board members in terms of how large we should keep that committee to or how small. Staff has suggested 5 to 7. We could go up, we could go down. That's up to the committee. The fourth item is how often does the committee meet and when does it meet? Right? Does it meet right before XCOM, which was a suggestion from staff, so that staff don't have to go to multiple meetings at different times. So one meeting would happen prior to the other. Maybe there would be a break in between in case Finance Committee went long. There's a question there in terms of how often the committees meet, right? Another way you could do it is you could say the committees each meet 6 times in the year and they alternate months, right? There's different ways on that for us to consider. And those were kind of the areas I had. Are there any additional kind of areas for us to cover that directors were expecting? Just to start us off. Yeah, Director Andre?
Well, one, just a clarifying question. I just wanted to make sure that since the board voted on creating the Standing Finance Committee, that the Finance Committee reports directly to the board. Okay.
That's correct. And unless we would make some recommendation otherwise to the board.
Okay, great. Thanks.
But yes, this is not a subcommittee of an existing committee. This is a third standing committee.
Okay, great. And then also, I guess we can talk about the, I'll bring up my other questions when we go through your questions, but thank you for laying out the agenda items.
Great. So we'll start just if there's any questions on kind of the process or anything I laid out, and then we'll go to public comment and then we'll deliberate. Just to make sure we get public comment before we deliberate on these items. Are there any other questions?
Chair, I just have one question. On the committee size and membership selection that's listed here, it does say at the end that the Finance Committee selects its own chair for 1 year. The Finance Committee chair is selected to 2 one-year term. Oh, it's limited to 2 one-year terms. I feel like we voted on this, but I wasn't sure. Where is that set in policy, or is this just a recommendation for the Finance Committee?
So that's the policy we have for, I believe, both the XCOM and the TechCom, right? So I think it's just a recommendation to include that for the FinCom as well. But if this committee feels like we should do it differently, or we want to leave that up to the FinCom to decide, we can absolutely do that. But yeah, good point. We should add that to an item to talk about.
Just to clarify my question, where do I find that policy? I feel like I voted for it, but I'm not sure. Is that in our JPA operating rules, or is that in a particular policy outside? I know that this committee probably was the committee that voted for it, but where would I find that?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Director Murphy. It was on the last time that the board approved the executive committee scope. That was an added item, and I'm happy. I don't know that date off the top of my head, but happy to reply to the full executive committee if you'd like with that information. But it was in one of the minutes from a recent board meeting.
Gotcha. So we'll find that more so as a vote of the minutes, and then the executive committee recommended that to the technical and committee and board, or just. I would just like staff's follow up on that. That would be helpful, even if it's email.
Yeah, we'd be happy to follow up on that.
Yeah, I believe we recommended it for both the board to adopt as well as for TechCom to adopt. And I believe the board, it was determined by legal counsel, it was in the JPA agreement. So they didn't proceed with it for the board chair, but I believe you did on TechCom. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Chair, this is Justine Parmley. I just wanted to weigh in on this. So it was voted on in XCOM at the December 4th regular meeting of the board. It was brought on consent at the December 4th regular meeting of the executive committee. It was brought to the board at the April regular meeting of the board. So it would be found in those minutes. And it was only a recommendation that was brought for technical committee at that time, for all standing committees to mirror what the executive committee has for their term limits.
Solid, thank you.
Great.
Max, I said,
Director Wilkinson.
sorry, just a couple of things in terms of the questions. One would be whether people serving on the finance committee should serve on other committees or not. I think that'd be one question I have. And then the other would be in terms of the composition of the committee, does that stretch beyond the board? Does it go to alternates? Does it go to representatives of those cities if there's a preference for people with any sort of numbers expertise, or whether there should be any openings for members of the public, or at least maybe as non-voting members?
So I think that's the second item I mentioned, which is requirements to be on or qualifications to be on. Good point on if there were non-members of the board on. I think Justine or Catalina, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe alternates are allowed to serve on committees. So I don't think we need to decide that. That's just already permitted. You obviously can't have both the alternate and the primary person. In terms of other people on the council, you could just have them be your alternate, right? I mean, obviously that's up to the mayor of the city or the president of the board of supervisors.
Yes, that's correct. We've permitted alternates to serve in place of a designated director that's on a committee in the event that director cannot attend that committee.
Yeah. We had Eddie Burson, I believe, on this committee in the past, who was an alternate. All right, we'll go to public comment in San Rafael on this item. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, Alicia Minion again. So first of all, I want to thank all the directors that supported forming a standing finance committee. I also want to thank all the board members who asked the probing questions on the November 20th meeting relating to just all the issues that are, that were raised not only in the newspaper, but also questions that led to information that I didn't know about. For example, the short-term contracts that make up about 60% of your energy purchases. And I think that, again, like I had said in the last meeting, there's so much money flowing through this agency. You have to have a finance committee. This shouldn't be a negative thing. This is a positive thing. There's only upside to having a standing finance committee, but there's only going to be upside if it's formed in such a way that it's meaningful. And the committee will be free and can ask unlimited questions and get documents necessary to uncover the why we're having certain issues. Like the RECs, that's fascinating to me. And that's almost $200 million that really needs to be thoroughly investigated. And so I'm concerned that because I'm getting this impression from staff that this is a very negative thing. And by the way, I don't want to throw all the staff in. If I was in the finance department at MCE, I would love my job and I would talk about finance all day, whoever would be willing to listen to me. So I'm pretty sure staff, I think they want this. And it shouldn't take that much time because they're doing this work every day. But so in terms of the scope, please don't limit the scope where this just becomes not meaningful whatsoever. And number two, I like at least 7. I was on a school bond oversight committee at one point in my life, and I liked the 7. And so you could have maybe a couple of those members, maybe one be an energy expert that's independent of MCE. They don't have any existing, they're not conflicted with any existing contracts to help provide that kind of specialized expertise that I'm sure the Finance Committee will need. And then maybe have an MCE customer with a strong financial background also, have eyes and ears on this as well. And in addition, in terms of the scope, again, I don't want it restricted, but you really need to look at the recs. I'm concerned about, not greenwashing, it's greenwashing or impact washing. So I think it's important if MCE says, hey, we deliver X percentage of clean energy, I think it's important that the customer knows
You can wrap
what
it up.
you're actually delivering. So, but anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public in San Rafael? Yeah, Dan?
Good afternoon. In terms of the size, some of this is in a memo we sent and is on public record from MCL that was submitted for the last board meeting. But size 5 to 7 is good. Glad to see that. Qualifications, we think to make this effective, there should be qualifications. People should have some type of finance background, or it could say something to the effect of finance background is strongly recommended, or a willingness to learn finance. If you don't want to rigorously enforce or be involved in evaluating backgrounds, but something that indicates that the intention is that there's finance background so that we make sure this committee actually has the expertise to do its job. And then in terms of scope, that is also in the memo. One thing we want to make sure gets addressed is the whole energy price risk management, the whole rolling of contracts, the hedges, the attribute contracts, the RA, all of that. That's where all the money is. That's where all the risk is, 94% of costs. So that really has to be under the purview of the Finance Committee in terms of longer term planning, doing analysis, doing scenarios. This is the type of stuff we see at other CCAs. I think it's very helpful. It allows you to act proactively instead of reactively. So that risk component is very important. There's some other things in the memo that I won't, in the interest of time, go into now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Other comments? Ken?
I'm sorry, we cannot hear you here in Concord.
So sorry, I didn't hit the button. This is Ken Strong, Marin Conservation League. Since we did not get a chance to see the staff thing until partway through the meeting today, it's a little hard to react to some of them, but there's one, and I don't know whether that's exactly what we're commenting on or more just generally what we think ought to be in a finance committee.
Anything to do with the item?
Anything to do with that?
The agenda item.
There's an indication in this staff memo that it seems to be sort of mandating geographic diversity on the committee. I agree that MCE needs to have geographic diversity in its decision-making process. But I don't know that geographic diversity should be emphasized over expertise, because I do think some sort of a numbers background for a finance committee is important. That doesn't mean it has to be exclusively, but maybe a majority, strive to have a majority of the members have some sort of financial expertise so that there is a little more of a deep dive. I don't have a finance background. I can't understand. I mean, I have a hard time reading a spreadsheet and a finance a balance sheet. So some expertise, I think, is definitely necessary, particularly on these complex energy contracts, as Dan Segadin mentioned. So I really would like to see that emphasis. And I also, I agree that this needs to be reporting directly to the board. There may be things like the budget, where the Finance Committee takes a first cut at the proposed budget, asks a lot of tough questions. Then it goes to the Executive Committee for them to review the budget as well before going up to the board. But I don't think that Finance Committee recommendations should somehow just be short-stopped at the Executive Committee. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Other comments in San Rafael? Seeing none. Comments online?
Member of the public, Mimi?
Mimi, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Mimi Willard from the Coalition of Sensible Taxpayer. I think the most important thing here, besides, of course, the obvious, which is the great necessity to establish a financial committee, is that financial and or energy expertise must be required of the members of this committee. And ideally, you would have representatives from both of those expertises, as Dan Segedin suggests. As you may not have enough directors who meet that qualification, you should also be open to considering the alternates. I think it would also be a possibility to have an at-large community member who has said expertise if you need to fill a hole. I personally think that 5 maximum is the right number. And the reason is that you're going to be hard pressed to find people who actually have the expertise. And that if you start to select people who don't have the expertise, it kind of undermines the process. And also, as you get larger, as you've seen with XCOM, you have greater difficulty with the quorum. You have to have people who are committed to this. And I feel strongly that you should not undermine the effectiveness of this committee by filling the slots based on geography or other factors that are not expertise based. And certainly I would be appalled by the idea of selecting people based on their willingness to learn finance. It's a very complicated topic. I think all decisions and recommendations should be one man, one vote. And as necessary, this oversight body should have the power to engage outside expertise as needed. For example, an energy consultant, if some of the topics are beyond the acumen of the FinCom. And the committee, together with the board, should have the power to select and hire directly any needed outside expertise without management as a filter. Because it's an oversight committee. I think it should meet no less than 1 time a month. And particularly at the outset, I would hope that you would select people willing to meet more frequently if necessary, given the backlog of issues and the desire to get them up quickly to the board level for consideration. Setting up this committee as an urgent time priority, an urgent time sensitive priority, a recommendation should be made for the board to review at the next board meeting if possible, but certainly with a final vote on its recommendations no later than the January meeting. Thank you for considering these recommendations.
Thank you, Mimi. Other comments online?
I see no raised hands, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. I do have one clarifying question for General Counsel. Traditionally in this committee, we do vote 1 member, 1 vote. We don't vote based on proportion of city or county size. Do we need to discuss that for Finance Committee, or is that just understood that it's 1 person, 1 vote?
It would be the same 1 person, 1 vote, because we can't indicate that there would be a representative number of the communities in each of the committees. So it would be impractical.
Thank you. That's what I thought. Just wanted to clarify for the public comment. All right. We will turn our attention first to the scope of the committee. We have,
This is Director Nakamura. I did not have a chance to ask some of my questions.
Yes, please go ahead.
So I just wanted to clarify what I heard about mirroring what the other committees are doing with the terms. I think that was shared that this finance committee would have the same terms as the XCOM and as TechCom. Can someone clarify that?
I had that as one of the items for us to discuss. But
so
I think it was clarified that the board actually passed a policy that says that all standing committees already adhere it. So it sounds like maybe we don't need to address that as it's already a board policy.
Yeah, so it was voted on consent in the April regular meeting of the board.
Yeah.
But if it's helpful to this committee, I can forward the minutes from that meeting and the item that was on consent.
I
So
understood that.
if you would
Dawn.
like to
I was
do
just
the
asking if-
finance committee differently, right? We could recommend that, but if we want it to be the same as executive and technical committee, we don't have to take action on that since
Okay.
it's already a board policy.
Great. And then my other question for you and Director Kohler, I really appreciate having this in front of me, this the scope and the size and the meeting schedule in front of me. A lot of it makes sense. I'm just wondering how much input did anyone from the finance department have in a collaborative approach? Was there input from staff on this?
So thank you, Director Nakamura. This is Barbara Kohler. I had asked for a straw person because I thought it would help us focus the discussion. And Dawn put this together herself over the weekend and mentioned that staff had not had input, and she was hoping that once we arrived at some decisions that we would have staff provide some input. So, Dawn did this herself as a courtesy. So I thought otherwise we might be here for 4 hours.
Right.
So that was my goal in asking for it.
But it sounded like you both had some input into this.
No, in fact, I had asked early on after the packet came out why there was nothing in the packet, and Max reminded me that he had wanted to do a free forum, but then no. So Dawn sent that, I believe, late on Sunday or Saturday. And so it was kind of her to, help us focus. And she made it clear this is just her draft. It's not presuming that anybody would love everything about it or love anything about it. And she just was doing that as a help.
Okay, great. And then do you?
Can I just add in one piece
Go ahead.
on that? It was intended for Director Kohler, and I was included on the emails, but I asked staff if they could print it out just for the interest of everyone seeing the same document for today. So apologies if it's more confusing versus less, but that was the interest of transparency. Since Dawn did put this together, I wanted everyone to see it, and it was over the weekend, so staff haven't had an opportunity to see it either. So.
Okay, and I appreciate that. And thank you both. Do you have a sense that any of what has been laid out here is what other CCAs are doing? We've heard a lot of public comment that what is wanted is, in terms of best practices with what other CCAs are doing. And so I'm just wondering if this aligns with that. You don't know.
I don't know. My understanding in talking to members of the public who follow other CCAs is they do it differently at different CCAs. So I don't think there's one best model necessarily.
Okay. Thank you very much. Those are my only questions.
Yeah, good questions. Thank you. Other questions before we move on to? Okay. So let's focus on the scope. Director Kohler, do you want to start us off? I know there's kind of different areas here, right? We also had public comment on kind of adding in a couple. One that I would like to add to the Finance Committee for folks to think about is adding in the audit, which I know was a topic of discussion this year on kind of where that lives. I think the Finance Committee makes sense to put the audit under its auspices.
Yeah, and you and I spoke yesterday and said definitely the audit should be part of it. And Chair, I don't want to sort of overrule you, but I think in interest of time, I would rather just get all my comments out rather than going piece by piece so that, we can maybe do this as expeditiously as possible.
I'll make note of each item.
Okay, so for the scope, obviously the audit is one piece. I also, Dan Segedin talked about more of a risk analysis for energy work. Now, just to remind folks that energy contracts and pricing is all confidential. So, but I think what you're looking for is kind of a big picture analysis. And I think that is actually very important. So I like that suggestion coming from MCL. I want to also thank Dawn for putting this together over the weekend to give us a start. And I think a lot of it is really helpful. I know that folks have a strong opinion about, recommendations from the Finance Committee going to XCOM. And I would say that some of those to me are very important that they do go to XCOM. For example, rate setting is not just about dollars and cents. There's social justice, emissions, things like that. And so I think it's much broader than dollars and cents. And I think we need to think about that. So rate setting in particular, I think also the annual budget, while it's important to have a finance committee really weigh in on that, again, there are other factors that come into play. And so I think we ought to think about that as we look at whether or not certain things are recommendations to XCOM. And I don't have particular things on everything because I think I saw this Saturday night or Sunday morning, and I looked at it and I talked to Max yesterday. But I think to me that is important that we consider that not everything's straight dollars and cents. So I think that's what we're looking for from the Finance Committee. But I think there's a lot of other factors that we consider in a lot of our decision making, and it would be helpful to have XCOM also weigh in. And it may be that if you have recommendations from finance which differ, that we provide that to the full board. So we have a full understanding of where those came from. As far as requirements, I guess I want to say I'm a little affronted. I sat on the Fairfax Town Council for 13 plus years, and we have budgets that we all deal with. So, and before that, in my career, I managed multi-million dollar budgets. So for different things. And so I think we all I think you have to have a strong interest in finance. So some folks that have maybe a pure financial background as well as their city service would be helpful, but I don't think we need to say just straight finance background. So, and I think that also applies for our alternates. Where we have an alternate, let's say, and I'm not, let's say I'm a finance guru, but my alternate is not. They should have the ability to sit in because they bring their own level of perspective. But I do feel that anybody who wants to be on the Finance Committee really needs to be committed to it. And, if you're traveling, you send your alternate or you make alternate plans. I have done many things where I have not gone on trips because to me, my sitting on boards and commissions was really important. So I've missed very few. I think the idea of being on the full board at least 6 months is really helpful, which I think is something that was changed for the executive committee. I think you need to, anytime we get on something, usually for most folks, we sit back and we learn for a while before we start coming up with our ideas. And so that seems to me to be a good thing. How large? I like the idea of 5, which I think Mimi Willard talked about. I think as these committees get bigger, it gets, decision-making gets harder. If we went to 7, okay, fine. I think the idea of potentially having a non-voting member that would be kind of an expert might be useful. I think members of the public have the opportunity to weigh in, and we've been very fortunate that people are coming and they're weighing in, and we hear you. So I like that. And then when, frankly, having done many budgets in my lifetime, I don't think monthly you're getting much different. And so I think Max's or the chair's idea of maybe every 6 months might be a good thing. But the idea of maybe holding a date open if there is a need for a meeting might be a way to go. I was kind of thinking quarterly, but the timing might not work out. And I do like Dawn's idea of having things on the same day, should folks want to go to both. Those would be very long if you're sitting in finance and then going to exec. And I think one of the things we would have to do if we did something like that is to really just say 2 hours, it's over. Where things aren't taken care of, they get continued to the next meeting. So that's just my thoughts. And I do want to say, I really appreciate how much thought that folks here have put into this, Sally as well as Stephanie. And talking to Max, I think he's put really a lot of thought into this. And I haven't talked to everybody, obviously, Brown Act, but I think we're on a good path. And I think should we come up with maybe another version of this today, passing it through staff and also checking in on some of the other CCAs on the way they do their finance committee. Is there something we missed? Or are we going overboard? Let's sort of do a check-in. I agree that we need to move forward on this quickly because there's been a lot of anxiousness and angst over this. So I don't think we should drag this out. And by the way, there is no meeting in December as far as I understand. So it would be in January for the board. But let's see what we can do. And just thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Director Kohler. And just correct one piece is what I was initially thinking was since the XCOM met 6 times in 2024 and 6 times in 2025, despite being scheduled every month, right? We've canceled meetings, so it was 6 times and 6 times. I suggested possibly we could just have the Finance Committee meet on the months that the XCOM didn't meet. So it was 6 times, not every 6 months, but also hear both you as well as Don's suggestion of having it on the same day, which obviously that doesn't work with. All right, Director Wilkinson.
Sure, I'm happy to go next. So I agree with a number of Barbara's comments. I think some of the scope described in the document provided by Dawn is fine. I would definitely add in the audit function. I'd also include within that a review as needed of internal controls. I also agree that there should be risk modeling, and I've looked at some of the other CCA's finance committees, and many of them provide that kind of modeling. I do think that kind of financial modeling is important in relation to impacts of gaps in procurement, annual accounting impacts, attribute ranges, PG&E rates, and so forth. And so we need to look at the financial impacts. So the risk modeling to me would be a really important aspect of the scope. I'd also like to see ideally occasionally a review of external contracts which have a financial angle to them. And that's, our investment advisors, our banking relationships, and our energy consultants. Those things should be reviewed on a recurring basis. And as far as I know, we don't ever see those conversations come to the board at all. So I think that would be helpful to see those. In terms of the composition, I do think that I agree with public comment that expertise should be preferred. But I agree with Barbara there that it's not just people with a finance background, it's much broader than that. And so we have a finance committee in the city of Belvedere, and we encourage people with finance, consulting, tax audit, insurance, business, budgeting backgrounds. And I'd add to that energy in relation to MCE's preferences in terms of expertise. I do think that's those qualifications to me would be important. 5 to 7 members to me make sense. They certainly need to be people who are committed and are going to show up. And I do like the idea potentially of a couple of those members being external energy professionals or members of the community, maybe not as voting members, but just so that they at least can weigh in and guide the finance committee on things that the finance committee might not necessarily understand. 6 times a year makes sense to me, or as needed if something urgent comes up. I don't think it makes any sense to have a finance committee meeting on the same day as a executive committee meeting, particularly in relation to things like rate proposals and budget setting, because the finance committee could have a whole bunch of input or questions which would then feed into potentially changing what gets presented to the executive committee. And so having that on the same day rules out that possibility. So I would think, as Max suggested, alternating those meetings month by month between finance and then XCOM. In terms of the items that go to both finance and XCOM, I agree entirely that rate setting and budget setting is the most important thing that we do as a board. And so they should be reviewed by both of those committees, absolutely. I don't know about these other items listed by Dawn. I know right now, debt, investment policies, reserve policy are set by the executive committee, but I don't know. I don't have a strong preference on that. They'd obviously go to the finance committee maybe first. I don't know whether XCOM still needs to see those things or not before they go to the full board. I'm trying to think if there's anything I haven't covered. I think that's everything other than that recruiting for those members, whether it's a lead or the alternate, or if there's really not enough interested specialist members of the board or their alternate that going to staff at the local agency level is something that could also be leaned into if there isn't enough expertise within the board. That would make sense to me. And I personally don't believe that members should serve on multiple committees. I think these committees should be smaller in general with people who are committed, and you're not going to have as many Brown Act, quorum issues if they were smaller committees of committed people. The only thing I did see from one of the other CCAs was that the chair of the finance committee sat on the executive committee, and then that might be a way to allow that flow between those two committees, but without too much overlap. I thought that might be a good idea, but that's the only place where I can see necessary overlap. Otherwise, I think the responsibilities should be, and the personnel should be separated.
Thank you, Director Wilkinson. Director Lauren Scolati.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to also follow up what has been said, especially Director Kohler. I think I know you mentioned 5 people. I think 7 people might not be a bad idea just because some people might not be able to make it to the meeting, and then you have 4 or 3 people. So I think 7 is a good number. Having like the day of the week, I think for right now, it works for me. Once that the committee is set up, maybe, or whoever is interested, maybe they could decide on the date and what works for them. The 2-hour meetings, I really like that. In fact, I have to go at 2:00 because I have a meeting for my work. And I would like to propose for this new committee and also for our current committees, which is not a topic, but to reduce the time that we have for public expression to 2 minutes. And I really appreciate everybody that is here on public expressions. We have 2 minutes in the city of San Rafael, and I think it's sufficient. And it just helps maintain our meetings shorter. So, that could be a possibility. Also, I'm curious about having expertise, because I realize that we definitely have budgets in our cities, and so we have to know about finance, and having the expertise and the desire to join this committee, I think is important. I'm curious about having somebody that is not a board member to participate in the finance committee and what that would look like. So I don't think that's actually a bad idea. The last one is just to remind us all our role as board members. We set up policy. We are not staff members, and we are not going to be negotiating contracts and things like that. So it's definitely an oversight, but just I think it's always a good reminder for me and my role as a board member versus staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Director Andre?
Right. Thank you. I'm going to, I guess, echo a lot of the comments that have already been made. I do think that, setting the scope of the Finance Committee is going to be very important. So I am starting with the Marine Conservation League letter that was sent. It's of public record on November 18, 2025. I think they did a good job of listing at a high level what the Finance Committee should focus on. So 1, financial oversight and performance monitoring. 2, audit, internal controls and compliance. 3, budgeting and rate setting. 4, capital planning, financing and reserves. 5, financial policies and risk management. 6, long-term strategy, financial strategy and modeling. And 7, contracting and external engagements. I mean, I think a lot of what has been said already fall into these categories, and I just think that they did a nice job of laying out these broader categories, and maybe that could be just one way that we fold in the scope of the Finance Committee. I agree. I think, a Finance Committee of 5 to 7 makes sense, and maybe we leave it as a range, just given to see how many people might be interested. I do feel that it would be nice to open it up to the entire board and alternates just to try and get more participation from the broader board in all the jurisdictions. I certainly hear the comment about, geography, and we want to try and get more participation among all of our member jurisdictions. I also think that, we also need to balance. This is a Finance Committee. It's going to be looking at numbers in depth, and so we really need people who are interested and willing and capable of looking at a lot of numbers and diving deep, more deeply than what we can do at Executive Committee or at the board. So I think it's a balancing act. I think that we can just say that it's preferred that people have financial, tax, accounting, consulting, business backgrounds. And then just depending on the interest level that we get, I think the board can try and sort through, who actually gets appointed to this committee. With respect to the frequency of meetings, I actually think we should just leave that up to the committee. I mean, depending on how much work is needed, I think the committee should be able to decide how frequently they need to meet. My sense is there's a lot that needs to happen as we're trying to get the committee up and running. So maybe they need to meet a little more frequently initially. And then once, they get into a cadence, I think the committee can decide if they meet monthly, every other month, quarterly. I don't know. I don't know what the right periodicity would be, but I think maybe the committee could figure that out. And respect to just, whether people, again, I want to involve more people and more members and more jurisdictions. So my sense would be that if you sit on FinCom, maybe you don't sit on Executive Committee. And then maybe, as Director Wilkinson said, it makes sense to have some continuity, perhaps through the chair of FinCom sitting on the Executive Committee as a member, just so there is some two-way flow of information. Certainly recognize, back to the scope, with respect to budgeting and rate setting, that there is some overlap with current Executive Committee duties. And so I think it makes sense that if staff wanted to take those items to both committees, I don't think that should be an issue. I think more input from directors with different perspectives, I think, is valuable. And certainly by the time it gets to the board, if each committee wanted to make similar or different recommendations, I think, we can have that broader discussion at the board level. And then, some of these other items about entering into debt and the reserve policy and investment policy, I mean, I think those would be more, Finance Committee type items. So I would put those under Finance Committee, but certainly with budgeting and rate setting, I can certainly see why, getting a broader number of getting a perspective from a broader number of directors could be valuable. Thanks.
Thank you, Director. Turning it over to Concord, I'll just call on folks, starting with Director Quinto.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say thank you to my colleagues there in Marin County. Appreciate your thoughts on this. I agree a lot what many of you said, especially Director Kohler. As someone who has been part of this board off and on as a backup, as an alternate, but now as vice chair. I have to tell you, and I'm being truthful, many of us don't have the bandwidth for yet again another committee, and that's why I voted no. But I am fine with how the vote went, and we need to go forward with that, and I'm fine with that. But know that with just the things that I'm doing regionally and statewide, I want to let all of you know that I am relinquishing my post as vice chair. It's not fair to all of you and this organization when Cal Cities is flying me up and down the state every month. I just don't have the bandwidth to be vice chair. So I want to let all of you know about this. The 37 board members to this staff, our CEO, executive staff. I want to make sure that whoever the next vice chair is will be able to put the time in. I've already I attend 3 board members with the XCOM Executive Committee and Tech. That's 3 meetings a month, along with my regional and state boards. So my apology is I just don't have the bandwidth for yet another committee. Know that we have a professional staff that are doing their job. And so know that I expect this committee to be an oversight and to work with staff. And we're paying them a lot of money to do their work. They're professional, they're trained at what they're doing, and we need to back them. But I appreciate the oversight like we have always given them, and we'll continue to do that. But our job is not to dissect and tell them what to do. They are staff. We're just going to oversight the things that they are doing from now on. So just want to make sure that we both stay in our lane, and this committee will definitely oversight what our finance people and what our professional staff are doing. It's insulting to question them time and time again, and that's not our purview. But this new committee will be the oversight, and I'm good with that. So thank you for that. I am good with having this either on a Monday or a Friday, but I have to be truthful again. With the with the board meetings I attend and Tech Committee and XCOM, all 3 have had quorum problems for the last 10 years. And I know we will continue to do that. TechCom, we have had problems in making a quorum, pleading people to join us, and they don't join us. So, I hope this is different with this new committee that we are starting again. We've had problems through the years with the executive committee having a quorum. I want to make sure that we commit to this. If we're going to commit to this, I want to make sure that our board members attend. And I know they want a place at the table here, and there are a lot of openings, and I'm hoping that we will get some new people to attend. But looking at past years, we have had difficulty in getting our alternates as well as the board members in the other cities to even attend. So just wanted to point that out in the future. I hope things change. But I am good at what Dawn presented with this, and let's move forward to this. Again, it's already 2:00. Some of us have other meetings that we need to get to the evening, and I don't want this for MCE to take up all of my time as a council member, and I'll be mayor next year. I don't have the bandwidth, so thank you for understanding.
Thank you, Director Quinto. Director Darling?
Thank you. My fingerprints are probably somewhere here on Dawn's thing, because I did talk to both Max and her, never violating the Brown Act, because we would never do that. I look at, there's 3 different committees now. There's finance, there's tech, and there's XCOM. And there's articulations between those committees. When we talk about risk modeling, that is both right now the TechCom is responsible for the integrated resource management plan and the energy risk management plan. So there is some there. And so the TechCom and the Finance Committee will need to work together on the modeling. I think the way it's laid out here, the policy issues with rate setting, budget, debt, and investment policy, those are the articulation point with the XCOM. So I think all those work well. We'll just have to make sure we articulate that and we look to staff on how we make those work. As far as membership, prior to becoming an elected city council person, I was the chair of the Independent Oversight Committee for the San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority. And that to me is how I see getting outside expertise. That was a group that was responsible for financial oversight of Measure AA dollars being funded around the Bay. It was an independent citizens group. It was oversight and provided a recommendation to the people that had been elected to do the work. And I think we would want to do the same thing here. I want to see the people that are elected members sit on the group. If we need to bring in outside expertise, I would not want them to be sitting on the committee. I think I've seen that model used, whether it's the Bay Delta Science Advisory Group, there's a bunch of different ways you can schedule it, but I don't want to have local electeds mandate to manage for our citizens diluted by having other people on there, members and alternates. As far as expertise, I think it's something that I'm a fisheries biologist. Nobody would say I have financial expertise, but I have 2 years on that independent advisory committee. I've been on the city's finance committee for 2 years. I ran $500 million worth of state and federal grants. So as long as we're willing to say that finance is writ large, then I'm okay with saying we're looking for people, but I don't want to see people start picking through each other's backgrounds and saying, you never worked for Charles Schwab, so you have no idea what you're talking about. And and I think we do need to look at some measures to make committees or to make meetings run better. 2-minute public comments is something that we do in Walnut Creek. One of the other things that we do in Walnut Creek that will really help a lot of this is getting questions to staff ahead of time. I know we talked about this in the retreat in 24 with the XCOM, but especially with things as complicated as what we're dealing with, the more people who have in-depth questions, because we have 5 people on our council and there's 1 or 2 really in-depth people. And it really helps if they get their questions to staff ahead of time so that we can, so staff understand what their questions are. We can move through them. So that's something I'll be looking to. And other than that, I think the 5 to 7 is good. I do like the idea of trying to get some geographic distribution is good. And those are my comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Darling. I'm looking at an empty chair. Director Scales Preston. Go ahead.
There's an empty space between Director Darlene and I. Thank you, Chair. I agree with the overview that Dawn prepared and shared. I got to talk to her over the weekend as well. And so I think, some of the things that Director Darley just shared, in particular with regards to people who may not may have not majored in finance or masters or whatever, may have not have their job in finance, but have dealt with finance in their background. I definitely think we would want them to be engaged if they would like to serve on the board. I'm also very supportive of virtual participation. I would love to have other the other counties support and represent on these boards as well. I think it'd be really helpful. So if we could get Napa and Solano County more involved, I think that would be great engagement for all of us and just help us build better as a board because they would share different insight from their counties as well. I'm also in support of the meeting time of having 2 hours. I think that would be really helpful. I had some of the directors after our board meeting a couple of weeks ago because we went over, I guess it was about 4.5 hours. Also shared how some of their city councils have a cutoff. Some of them have a 10 p.m. cutoff. And some of them have 11 p.m. cutoff here in Contra Costa County, maybe different in other locations. But I think, you know, having those cut off and bringing it back, sometimes it is good to bring it back and have a fresh look on things and fresh eyes, and we can gain more perspective. I am curious about what other CCA's finance committees overview or scope looks like. So I think it would be really great if the MC staff can be able to look at theirs to make sure that we're on the right track as well. And I think the other things that directors mentioned, I'm in support of all of those things as well. I want to make sure that each of the directors are getting their answers, their questions answered, and feel comfortable with the finance committee and the scope and the layout here. I think my goal really is just to help with moving the board forward. And so, what we seen last board meeting, I think especially with staff being really uncomfortable in the room, in particular, not here in Concord, but in San Rafael, because of whether it was community members or directors that were, speaking loudly or their tones. I don't want that happening here on this board. I just want us to be able to work together. We may not always agree, and that's okay. We're always going to find things that we're not going to agree on, but we should be able to have conversation and work together and be able to move forward. And so I think for me, that's the biggest thing is making sure we get this committee put together, making sure we're filling any gaps or loopholes so that we can move forward and work together, but also this government assessment and cultural assessment to figure out what's going on, whether it's with our board, staff, anything going on behind the scenes to bring those things forward so that we can all move forward as directors and make sure that we're serving and doing what's best for MCE. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Director Nakamura.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I very much appreciate what Director Kohler and Darling have laid out as how we go forward. So staff is capturing the comments that are being made from the committee here. That's where I'm aligning. I think that having audit review does make sense to have that in the finance committee, not per se doing the audit, but being that, taking that, what the ad hoc may have done before in the past of doing the review and receiving the information from the paid professional audit committee or company. I think that risk modeling, I think that was a good point that someone brought up about having where that lands. My thought was that TechCom is probably where that happens, but there may be some overlap with finance. I think that I would lean towards having 7 members on the board, and also agree with the fact that a strong interest in finance is preferred when we are looking to bring people into that committee. I don't think it has to be, I don't think we have a board that's made up of Schwab employees like Director Darling was talking about. And then the schedule, I think having staff maybe weigh in on the scheduling and when that would work best to coordinate the three, the TechCom, XCom, and finance. I think staff may be best suited to ask how that then falls out, because if there's any overlap, if recommendations are being made from finance committee to the XCom, when the timing of those meetings are is probably a little bit more important to them, so that they can best provide what we need in those committees. And then there was one other, the other thing I was going to mention, we've heard a couple people say, ask your questions ahead of time in writing, either in writing or in person. For me, the way we work it in with Concord City Council is that if I have questions about an agenda item, staff report, if I get that into staff ahead of time, especially if it's a very detailed question and really down in the weeds, staff has the time to approach it and research it and get back to me. Sometimes when we're asking really detailed questions here and in the moment, in the meeting, I don't think that we set staff up to succeed with, in a sense, putting them on a spot with some really overly detailed questions. And so for people who have the need to get that information, that personally helps me as a member of this board to understand, read through the question, read through the answers, and it really helps me be a better board member. And so those are my comments. I think we're on the right track. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director. Director Murphy?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This overview is in scope is a great start to the discussion, so I appreciate the opportunity to dig into it. Generally, I feel like the scope and overview seem to be really aligned with what I'm hearing from our executive committee and from watching the board of directors meeting, what folks are looking to, I assume, task our executive committee in doing. I think the audit review, as said, definitely makes sense to add. And again, we do have we have a great team, a finance team who helps to choose our auditor, but I think just in terms of the review process, I think that would be fine. I wanted to make sure that we added or just clarified that in that review of monthly or quarterly reports that I think there's a understanding possibly, but I think it'd be great to be explicit about just ensuring that the committee is proposing cost-saving measures. Of course, if there's opportunities there, I would hope that the committee would do that, but just being a little bit more explicit there. And of course, I think Director Wilkinson had mentioned, or I'm not sure if it was Director Wilkinson or Kohler, about the scenario planning and risk analysis work as well. So of course, that might be, those two items may be within the review and receiving of the monthly and quarter reports, but again, just clarifying that and explicitly defining that may be of value. Under the Finance Committee may also choose to make recommendations regarding, I just wanted to encourage us to also potentially add the reimbursement policy as a consideration of a policy that the Finance Committee would be making recommendations to the Executive Committee about. Our staff does a pretty good job at this, of course, but and IRS and mileage rates change, so that could just be a potential scope of consideration for recommendation from the Finance Committee. I think I may be speaking too quickly because I don't know. Director Kohler, you've been on this board for a long time, so I don't know, but I may be the only director here who has served on both the Executive Committee and the Technical Committee throughout the duration of my time on this board. And so this is a fascinating exercise to think about, particularly given that we are a 38-member legislative body. And so I think that whether we like it or not, we're here tasked with creating a scope and a committee size and structure for a finance committee. And so I just say that I do think that this is, when it comes back to the board, I would like to have not a broader conversation, but I think it's important that the item is an item that is not explicitly only on finance committee, but also just generally thinking about, I think, and Director Preston Skills mentioned it, just about how we have governance structure. So I think like seeing the finance committee overview is great. Also, when this comes back to the board, I would love to just again ensure that the staff report also includes the scope of the executive committee and the technical committee, so that folks are able to review that holistically and comprehensively. I think that would be just valuable, and I just wanted to note that to the to staff and also to the chair, since we have everyone here. I'm okay with the meeting schedule. I would assume that staff would feel more comfortable with quarterly because again, the monthly meetings might be a bit much given the scale of the industry. And I'm always generally okay with more time for public comment. That may be controversial to others. So I'm okay with the 3 minutes. It can't be more controversial than a finance committee conversation. But I think that would be great. And then I did want to know, and this may be an unpopular choice too, but we talked a little bit about term limits at a previous board meeting, but I do think that we should reconsider that as a policy. Term limits, I think, play a better role when you are having the public elect roles, but when you have internal board legitimacy conversations, which is what I think the chair roles are within the committees, especially our standing committees, I do think that it may be wise for us to not consider or to reconsider, that is, the limitations on term limits for our committees. Um, and again, I'm not sure where the executive committee or the board stand with that. Obviously, we have a policy now, so that would need to be brought back when this is brought back. But I do think that it may be valuable to reconsider that. Um, I have noted all of my notes here, but just want to say again, thank you, Director Perret, and to the staff, of course, for your leadership on this. I know that this has been a conversation after conversation after conversation. I think, conflict is our greatest opportunity for growth. And so I also see this as a huge new chapter for us, as a way for us to really consider what ways we can move forward. And I think Director Scales Preston, you mentioned, both at the last board meeting, but also at this meeting, the government assessment. And I think that is a great, model for us to kind of move forward. So I'm really excited to think about that. Again, we are a large agency, and in many ways we are we are a large budget, right, as well. And I think that when I'm thinking about our work as an agency, a lot of us come from smaller communities and come to this agency. But we are a legislative body. And so, seeing and having committees for this body makes sense, given, again, the large scale of this agency. So I just want to say that I'm hoping that we can get this right. I'm hoping that this does come back to the board and in alignment with our other standing committees makes sense. But I think that Don's proposal here and some of our edits really make this make sense. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Murphy. All right, so I have a few comments here. I'll share, I guess, my thoughts on a few of these points, and then I'll try to build some consensus in staff direction. First, I did want to mention that our CEO reminded me that the board direction was to talk about the scope of the new finance committee and not to talk about the existing executive or technical committees. That doesn't mean we can't talk about those at a future meeting, but just to kind of clarify why we're focused on the finance committee specifically today. That said, there are some pieces here, right, that cover all the committees, right? So I think I heard from a couple of directors, right, on term limits, for example. Do we reconsider those? Time limit and public comment over multiple committees, right? There's some things that are kind of overarching MCE, how you run a meeting pieces, right? So I would, if folks are okay, I would table those to future discussions. It doesn't mean we don't talk about them or consider them, but I don't want that to get lost in this, since they have to do with multiple committees, including this one. I will also say on the time limits, my understanding is always it's really up to the chair to determine that. That's how we do it in Mill Valley. It's been different depending on who the mayor is. In this committee, we've always done 3 minutes, right? At the board meeting, last board meeting, we did 2. right? I think that's up to, I would want to leave that up to the discretion of whoever chairs the finance committee, and that could change over the years, right? It could even change depending on how packed a meeting agenda is. I think in Mill Valley we do 3 unless it's a packed city council meeting, and then the mayor can make the discretion of going to 2. Okay, so for a few pieces here, right? I agree with a number of the comments on the scope, right? So we have audit, risk models / risk assessment, rate setting, a couple of mentions of internal controls, the budget, external contracts with financial, so I think that the piece here, because Director Wilkinson brought this up, and I agree, I think there's a difference between contracts with folks providing us energy and contracts with, in terms of what bank do we use or what financial investment firms do we contract with. And I think those pieces are currently in XCOM, and I think it would make sense for those to be in the Finance Committee. What I don't think would make sense is to put the energy contracts under the Finance Committee. So I think there's kind of a distinction there. So I just want to, yeah, I understood your comments. So, okay. So I agree with Director Wilkinson on that. I think for, in terms of what remains with XCOM, since we're not changing what XCOM is doing, I don't think we need to really talk about that unless at a future meeting we decide to limit the scope or recommend that the board limit the scope of XCOM. XCOM already does these things, so XCOM will continue to do those things, but the FinCom will have more ability to go more in depth into those pieces. On the memo we have, there's a number of things that say recommendations for XCOM, and I just want to be clear, just because there's a recommendation to XCOM, and I'm going to leave it to staff to kind of figure out how to incorporate this in writing, but I think it's that we're recommending it to the board, but that the FinCom is doing it before XCOM. So it come as almost 2 recommendations, which could be different, right? Essentially different options for the board to consider, right? And hopefully they're aligned, but there may be cases where they're not, right? And that's okay, especially if we decide to have different people on different committees. They might come to different, different resolutions. I think that's okay. So I don't know, Director Andre, if that's kind of what you were getting at in terms of it's not a subcommittee. I agree it's not a subcommittee, but I think there are things that it makes sense for it to remain with XCOM. So it's going to go to both, and it's the order in which those happen. I think FinCom goes first because they're going to spend more time.
Yeah, I think, yes. So what I was trying to get at was the stuff where there's current overlap with FinCom. So on the debt piece and also on the reserve policy piece, is that currently in XCOM?
All finance is in XCOM.
Right. So, I mean, it feels like
Doesn't mean we spend a lot of time on it, but it's all currently in XCOM. And that'll remain, right?
Well,
unless
I mean,
we recommended in the future to take
right,
it. Yeah.
right. Yeah. So I guess, my thing would be if we should incorporate into the FinCom scope, right? The other things that you've talked about, and then where there's current overlap, yes, I think that FinCom is not a subcommittee of XCOM. And so FinCom will have its own recommendations and XCOM can make its own recommendations if it wishes. And the 2 recommendations can go to the board where, the board discusses.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what I said, is bring both.
Yep, exactly. And there were a lot of comments in favor of that, but just to clarify that. Okay, so then the next piece is kind of the size of the committee. I was trying to mark down check marks. A couple of folks in Contra Costa said they agree with Don's memo, so I assume that means 5 to 7. So there seems to be the most votes for 5 to 7. There were a couple of folks who just said 5 and a couple of folks who just said 7. I personally am fine with either. I think 7 makes sense if you're not having members of the public. I think if you're having members of the public, then maybe you do 5 plus the members of the public, right? So I think it kind of comes down to that. I think more than 7, none of us think that would be workable. So maybe it's a recommendation of 5 to 7 on that, and then it's kind of up to the board to determine whether to go above 5, but that we're not like actively recruiting someone just to fill bodies if it's not over 5, if that makes sense. In terms of the non-voting member, I would be interested for this because I think what we're doing, I think we don't have the time to go. I think there's some follow-up here, right? Including what's in place at other CCAs. So I would want to see that come back to our meeting here at XCOM, kind of fleshing out these things, right? Staff taking these recommendations and fleshing them out a little bit in a kind of taking this memo, editing a little bit, subtracting, adding, and looking at what the other CCAs do. But for the non-voting member, I'd be interested to see if any other CCAs have that and how that works. And then we can make a decision at that time. Because not everyone spoke to that issue. And I think I can see the benefit of that. I can also see that, taking up a lot of time of figuring out how to recruit people. And then the FinCom, is the FinCom appointing that person? Are we taking board time, right? It could go down a road of taking a lot of time without a huge benefit. At the same time, I heard multiple people say that would be of interest. So it could be interesting to hear if other FinComs or other committees at any CCA is doing that currently, if that is okay with folks.
Can I ask a clarifying question? When you're talking about a non-voting member, are you talking about like an alternate? Or are you
No,
talking about someone
talking about a member of the public who would be appointed either by the board or by the FinCom themselves to sit.
And if I didn't speak to that when I had my comments, I would disagree with that. I don't. I think that if we, like Director Darling said, if we need to go outside of the board for any other opinions or expertise, then we can hire them.
Okay. I would also be, so maybe we bring that back just to understand, not a huge amount of in-depth research on it, but understand if any other CCAs have that in place. And also on the question, I think it was Director Darling said, of if there's any oversight committees entirely made up of members of the public, if that exists at a CCA. Because we have that, for example, on, I used to be, before I was on council, on the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority Citizens Oversight Committee, for example, right? And that was entirely members of the public. So just curious if that's in place at any CCAs. Obviously, there's not a tax measure that was incorporated into, which is often the case in JPAs and school districts that have oversight committees, but would be interested in that. So we don't have to debate that one way or the other today, but we can have some more information. Okay, and then we've got how often does it meet? I heard leave up to FinCom. That was 2 people who indicated that. I heard every other month or 6 times a year. A couple of people said that. I heard one person say quarterly. I heard someone say monthly, but maybe even more often to begin with. So I think there's differing perspectives on this. If we're okay with it, I would want us to bring that back and make a decision at the next meeting. And if we can learn from other CCAs on how often their FinCom meets, I think that could be helpful for us to understand. And then in terms of the requirements to be on, I heard a pretty broad consensus that there's not a hard and fast requirement, but that there's an indication of preference of the sort of skill sets or interests you might bring. Everyone who serves on the board oversees their city budgets or county budgets. Many of us have been on finance committees, so I think putting a hard and fast rule could lead us down a road of people trying to micromanage what sort of expertise. So I would also support not having a hard and fast rule on that, but I think having a preference makes sense so that as people join the board of MCE and they're interested in different committees, they can understand what the committees are doing and the type of skills they might bring to those committees. So if staff can bring a draft of a sentence or 2 with the sort of things, I think Director Wilkinson read off some points that were good. Maybe those can be incorporated from the transcript. All right. Today, term limits. I think we just apply what we have, and then to Director Murphy's point, if there's interest in bringing that back to review for all the committees, we do that at a later date. Yeah, Director Kohler.
I just want to say Director Wilkinson had to leave. She apologizes. She'll take her daughter to a driving test. And I just want to make a suggestion, Chair, if you don't mind.
Yep.
I think we, with Dawn's start as a starting point, I think there was a lot of agreement about what to add, what to change. And I would suggest that, and Max, thank you for kind of summing up, that we do an XCOM meeting in January, which would meet before the board. And if you could go to other CCAs and look what they have and bring us back a draft that all can see, for that packet for the XCOM, I think we can wrap this up and then it could go to the full board in January. And I agree that, some of these issues are not specific to finance. They're specific to other committees, so we'll think about those at a later date. But I'm hoping we can do that so we can wrap this up and then move forward very quickly, probably at the January board meeting, finalizing it, and maybe at the same time asking for folks who would like to be part of it. And I want to say, I'm full up. I'm happy with exec and the board, but I would also advocate that we try to get folks from some other jurisdictions who haven't been able to participate would be good. So let's see what we can do to have a really good straw person for the next XCOM meeting and then wrap this up for the board. And I think so at that board meeting, if we can ask for people to suggest, and I also like what Director Wilkinson said about people should not necessarily want to be on everything. It's too much. And I think we can only split our time so much. And if people really want to do finance, they should focus on that and not try to split their time so much. But that's up to everyone to decide for themselves.
I would agree, and I would, just speaking personally, I would recommend we have a policy, as a few folks said, of limiting the amount of committees people can be on, so they can just be on one. I think it's an interesting idea from another CCA that Director Wilkinson mentioned of the chairs being on different committees, but I personally will be on one committee next year, regardless of whether there's a policy, and just encourage other people to do that as well. All right. If folks are okay, we'll, Director Quinto, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to recommend to everyone, especially incoming mayors and council members, every January, Cal Cities, we do a training on good government skills for folks that will be mayor in the incoming year. So it's always good to do a refresh. We do this in January, every January in Sacramento. Highly recommended, and this would help in the future on how our meetings are being held, so we can streamline what we're doing, and and we won't have these extra long meetings. These are not necessary. I appreciate this meeting especially because we have to deal with what we have to deal with. But in running a meeting and making sure we deal what we have to deal with, I definitely recommend this training. So if folks haven't had the training yet, do take it. It will help in your leadership at Cal Cities and also your the cities that you belong to, especially with folks that will be mayor for the first time or folks that haven't been mayor in a while and are going to be a mayor again. Always good to do that refresh course. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Quinto, and I'll be a mayor for the first time and look forward to attending. All right. Any other announcements, board and staff matters from Concord? All right. And then Rafael, yes, Justine.
I have a quick staff matter. So earlier in the meeting during public comment, a member of the public commented that they had difficulty accessing the Zoom by phone. I just wanted to let folks know that we did test right after that comment to confirm that it was accessible. However, we do have a resource on our agenda ada-coordinator@mcecleanenergy.org. So if you're having trouble with accessibility of the meeting, or if you need anything, please email that. We do monitor that during the meetings, whereas Clerk@, might not be actively monitored because our clerks are working the meeting. We do have folks who can monitor that and call the individual and help them gain access to the meeting.
Thank you very much, Justine, for that follow-up. All right.
Chair, I've got a
Yep.
few things. So one, I just wanted to confirm. So we've been given direction on the Finance Committee item to go back and take the feedback here and provide something in the January XCOM. So I wanted to confirm that. And then two, I just wanted to address Director Andre's concerns from earlier this meeting, and I appreciate your concerns in bringing those up. I want to assure you and the entire committee that management does not have the power to remove a director. That lies with the board per the JPA and the operating rules and regulations. And there have been no plans hatched between myself and Ms. Wise to do so. And I'm really saddened that such nefarious conduct would be imputed to both myself and Ms. Wise. This is, I think, just a genuine misinterpretation of the conversation that was had at the time, and want to assure the committee that both myself and all of management are committed to ensuring that there is trust among this committee and the board, and in the best interest of MCE. So I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate everyone for treating this item around the Finance Committee today with the respect and the seriousness which it deserves, and for treating each other and staff with the respect as well. Thank you, and wishing you all a great week.